Welcome to the Thought Leader Podcast. Get ready to hear powerful stories, unique perspectives, and bright ideas to impact the world in the areas of health, wealth, and relationships. We interview experts, authors, executives, entrepreneurs, and other industry thought leaders who share new strategies, practical tools, and best practices to accelerate your personal and professional results. This is the Thought Leader Podcast. And now, here's your host, Elena Fernandez.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Thought Leader Podcast. And today we have an amazing guest, someone who I've fallen in love with. Her name is Joan Marie, and she's a visionary artist. She creates exuberant joy and intensity with her art, which uplifts spirits and inspires expansion. Hi, Joan Marie.
Hello.
Oh my gosh, I love your passion, and I always feel uplifted. It's true. Every time we're talking, and you are just a joy. Oh my goodness. Welcome.
I'm just a reflection of you. Oh my goodness. Look at you.
Oh my goodness. And I love your background. And that is going to be a hint of what we're talking about today, because your personal power portraits are a window that open our heart to our soul's desires. So I really love what we have going on. And I'm going to just go right into it and start asking you questions, because I know that you have so much information to share. And so I don't want to miss a minute. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Yay.
Okay. So we already feel your passion and purpose as an artist to inspire and create spiritual expansion. For each of your collectors, we see it on your background. We see it in your spirit. So before we discuss how your personal power portraits help us to remember who we really are, I'd love, and I think the audience would love to hear a little bit about your journey to achieve your ability to express the divine. So tell us about your story of healing and how you achieved that.
Oh, yes, my healing. Wow. I mean, my recent leukemia, I'm going to say it. Because for the longest time, I wouldn't say because you just don't. But yeah, to heal without drugs with that recently is huge. But it's all part of the picture, isn't it? All part of the learning and the growth that we have. And I was thinking about how this all began when I was 19, and I was over there with a college class, and I was able to be in Italy, and I saw Michelangelo's Sistine ceiling, and it was just an out-of-body experience. The spiritual energy that just filled me, I just zoned out. I mean, it was just life-changing. It just shifted. And I think back and I realized that was the opening, that was the driving force my entire life, that just kept me so driven, so high. And, it's funny because many times through my life, I say, yes, I live in La La Land. Or, I'm just going to be a child all my life. And, I look back and I realize that's because my world is in this divinity, in what really matters. Sitting in front of Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo and experiencing that extremely high energy of expansion and the essence of life. I mean, it's such a high level of energy, and that if we can just get that straight in our minds, we all have our journeys. I mean, oh my gosh, your journey just blows me away. The things you've gone through to achieve, to come through the other end, and I know. I mean, I know it's because you've always gotten in touch with what really matters. We all have these journeys of ups and downs, and when we forget who we really are, which is love, which is the higher consciousness of awareness of what our intuition guides us to feel, what our intuition wants. Our intuition guides us. It'll guide us through challenges, and it'll guide us through, things that we need to grow. But it's all about love and that higher. I mean, even scientists, I was just listening to some of the latest scientists. They're becoming aware that they're finally admitting that meditation and being quiet and being present is the level of what reality really is. So here at 19, I was exposed to that. I received it. I was exposed to it and received it. And I was so driven. And then, then my next story is, after 2 years of serious art college, saying, now that I see art is so powerful, I have to become an artist. And I wasn't going to be an artist before that. And I just said, I have to. So I was so driven. And then my college professor, as a sophomore in this high level, college, insulted me and said, you shouldn't be an artist. You're not creative. Don't join the 27,000 starving artists in New York City alone. Like, you just don't have what it takes. And I was just like,
How did that feel? Because I think, for the audience and for myself, I feel a little, not a little, I feel anger. So how did that feel as a young girl to be told you don't have what it takes? And I think we can all relate to that moment in our lives, that even if it wasn't verbally, energetically, someone put that on us. And how did you handle it? And how did that feel?
It's funny, when I was teaching high school art, I would share that story with my high school students. And I said, if you were in that position, how would you respond? And it was always interesting to see the difference. Some would say, I would just tell him off, I said, wow, I wish I would have had the confidence or the ability to. I withered inside and I was very shy. I was very quiet. I got very quiet. And I had been taught to respect authority. And he was a high level, very respected art professor in a very high level college, university. And I just, so I withered for a moment, but then I erased the tears and went back and I said, is creativity something that you can learn, or do you have to be born with it? And he said, I'm sorry, you have to be born with it, and you weren't born with it. He said, I'm sorry.
Wow. And now we know that that's the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset.
I've now heard that this same professor loved to insult people that he didn't feel had potential, which he didn't feel I had potential, to stop them, because he just felt it was a waste of everybody's time. And so whether he So, I mean, I then, after I regrouped, I just said, I'll prove him wrong inside, but there was that voice, it must have been 30 years after that. I think I was about 20 by then. That voice was still hearing him insulting me. And then that voice, Michelangelo and DaVinci, calling me, and so I had these two powerful, and I couldn't shut this one down for the longest time. And so I lived this life of being, kind of that battle, and but I kept working out. I was a workaholic and I kept working. And so my skills got incredibly good. And I showed him, right, with my skills. And then to reach my voice, then to reach the spiritual voice I was after, because I was sort of blocked. It wasn't until I moved to Sedona, Arizona, where I got in touch with my spirituality. And I just started, getting quiet. Because the hyperness of going back to getting my master's and the more insults, and because I didn't fit into the university's picture of what an artist should be. My spiritual art, my sensitive, my art at that time just wasn't what was going on in the galleries in New York at the time. So I wasn't what they wanted. So the insult, it was hard, so I had to move to a little town where I could be in where I lived on the river with the alligators and the alligator dinners and fast boats and bobcats and
Yes.
and where people were in a little town and they would compliment me. So I got that energy of, and I taught high school art, and I taught them to be creative, and I taught them to love themselves. My whole focus with each one of my students was to discover what they loved so that they would be in love with themselves. I mean, I gave them lessons and I opened the door to them to be creative, to discover at the first classes, get creative, discover your creativity, because I believed that every one of us had it. So I was, just like that. And so that grew my creativity, to watch them be creative and to learn to love themselves. So all the things I wanted, what they say, you teach what you need to learn. It really is true. So I got them to be creative, and then I grew creatively, and I grew to love myself more, and things evolve. So there's much more to the story, but that's kind of one big chunk of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. What I love is that you followed the trail until you were in a place where you could fully express yourself and you could be embraced. So what a difference where, you weren't embraced in this place, but you just went and went to another place where it could happen, and you became that authority figure. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that's where we have to trust life, because I didn't plan to move to the Withlacoochee River in Istachata, Florida. It's just this obscure, I didn't plan that. It just evolved and happened that way. And then just like I ended up moving to Sedona, that was a whole nother magical story of how I just landed there. I didn't say, oh, now I'm going to grow my spirituality, I'll move to Sedona. It didn't, I didn't know anything about it, so if we just follow our intuition to it, like not question, and you land. And then once again in Sedona, I was so nurtured. Everyone's like, you're so spiritual, your art is so, like you're great, you're great, you're great. And see, that's the thing. If I could have just gotten to this place of I am great, whatever level I'm at. We have this formula of a certain amount of money you got to make to be successful, a certain look of your art, a certain look of your skill. There's a certain level that you feel like, when I'm here, then I can call myself successful. But that's not how it works. You got to feel successful every level of the way, and then just keep working to get better. Enjoy the process of getting better. So
yes. I love that, because in other perception, like if we were to look at that with a different perception, we would say, oh, those businesses failed. But in your perception, it was a leading up to where you found your mentor, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I didn't have that wisdom as business after business failed. I did not have that wisdom, even though I might have been taught it. I hadn't quite gotten there because I was still working too hard. That whole thing of, the faster you push and the harder you push. I learned that lesson that you have to love where you are in order to move forward. And I made shifts in my life accordingly in many ways, like changing my attitude towards a job that I didn't like, and then, different things. But when it came to businesses failing, I didn't quite, I was so, what's the word? It was so important to me that that this business succeed, that it didn't.
Wow. Isn't that interesting?
Isn't that just one of those mind-boggling, what did you say? So I mean, you have goals, you have desires, you have excitement, and you work towards it, but you have to be able to let it go. Because I realize now, when I look back at this business and that business, it taught me so much that made me who I am now. But it was, if that business at that level had succeeded, I wouldn't be who I am now, because when that failed, it pushed me to another to another, well, okay, if that didn't work, then I've got to try this. And then I tried that. And, it's a whole different style, a whole different type of business. And I learned so much. And now I'm this complex, I've been in so many different styles and experiences that I'm so much more full inside and so much more skilled and knowledgeable about everything that I bless those businesses failing now. But, at age 50, I cried so hard. At age 60, I cried so hard. I was like, can I try any harder? And I heard myself saying, I can't try any harder. But that was the problem. I was trying too hard. Isn't that weird?
Yes, absolutely. What I always hear is this phrase, you can't make things happen, but you can make them welcome.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Exactly, because, bad things happen to all of us, and yeah, it's how you perceive it. So welcome it, knowing that it's a lesson, or just welcome it to know that it is what it is. Sometimes you can't even define it as a lesson at the moment. You just say, well, I can't explain it, so I just have to change my attitude towards it, or it will get me down. It will get me, like in some way, it'll get me down. And then where are you, right?
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. And so tell me about finding Jim Fortin's course.
Oh, I had vowed to never take another self-help class.
Guilty.
I had signed up for every top level, spiritual class that, like, oh, this one's going to be the key. This one's going to be the key. This one's going to be the key. And finally I said, that's it. I know where I'm at, I'm fine. And then I hear him speaking. And so my intuition goes, are you kidding me? You're going to get your credit card out and you're going to join. I couldn't stop myself. And afterwards I was like, why? And I said, but I can't fight that powerful intuition. So yeah, Jim Fortin is a leader of subconscious transformation. So his brother-in-law is a shaman. And so the lessons he learns is through this, through all that he's learned through his shaman, through his brother-in-law, who's a real shaman. And it just, the beauty of the messages were so simple and pure and powerful that it just, I reached out to thank him, so deeply, because my identity, myself, the identity of who I was had shifted so much because of all the disappointments that I wasn't seeing my identity of myself wasn't. That was one of the big steps, was just to get in terms of how do you really see yourself, and so many other things that were taught that really opened blocks up. And I reached out to thank him. And to make a long story short, it ended up, he didn't want he said, thank you for those gifts, but I just saying thank you is enough. And I said, no, I want to do art for you. And I was like, oh my gosh, he loves spirit animals. I'm going to do a spirit animal for him. And so I did, it came to me to do a double-headed eagle for him. And I found out that was, and all this was coming to me. And it was just like the size, the technique, everything was new, and it just came to me like a miracle. And I just was at it and drawing it and created this. And it was and he was so moved. And so, yeah, that was the beginning of this, because then I realized what this was doing was putting together my passion to be a spiritual teacher. I mean, I didn't want to actually be a spiritual teacher, but I was always trying to help people spiritually. So to help people spiritually, along with doing my art, this is the perfect combination, because, I interview people for 90 minutes. And discover what their passions are, and discover deeper, things of who they really are, and then express that. And It's so fun.
Yeah. So is that what you call the personal power portrait? Because before I started talking to you, I had never heard of that. And I'm sure that our audience would love to know a little bit about that, because it's very exquisite, as we can see, but it also has the purpose of awareness of ourselves. So tell us more about what they are and their purpose and what they will do for us.
A personal power portrait is, we have to keep our personal power strong. The minute we let the minute we let somebody direct us, guide us, direct us in some other way other than what our intuition is, that's when we lose our power. We lose our personal power, not our power, but our personal power to guide and to be who we're here to be and to grow in the way we're to grow. And so we have to stay in touch with what our passions are and what our passions are. We lose touch because we get so busy in our lives and so busy with what we think is important, like making money. Well, sure, making money is important, but when that dominates, it doesn't work. So I interview somebody for 90 minutes and I ask them very pertinent questions that reaches more to what are your true passions? And that could be power animals or spirit animals. Excuse me. That it can also be your your colors, your energy symbols. And I get in touch with your energy. I connect, with your, and it's like an actor. I become one with you as I create this work of art, to putting all this together, that I have connected with you, and I just stay in your energy and create. And it's just magical how it flows together and it creates an energy so that when the person looks at it, it reminds them of who they really are, what really matters to them, so that when they get too sidetracked with something they're worrying about or something that's not as important for them, they can look at it and remind them, this is where my heart is. This is what I'm here to express.
Wow, that's amazing. Could you tell us a few examples of what that looks like?
Well, here's one. when I was healing from the leukemia, one of the ladies that doctors that helped me, that was a high level, how would you say it, consciousness doctor, as well as a real oncologist, said, why don't you create a personal power portrait for yourself? And I was like, oh my gosh, I've got a waiting list. No, I can't stop and do others, while, I've got to keep doing others because people are waiting. She said, well, as we know, we have to take care of ourselves first. We know the rule. We know the airport rule.
Yes.
we have to love ourselves and do ourselves first. So I did mine, and I don't know if there's a lot more to it, but there's just the eagle and the unicorn, and everything represents just like while I was healing from leukemia, just the way you were shifting to different animals that represent different things for me, like twirling like a dolphin. I mean, I love to twirl, and it just helps you forget, you just twirl and you picture the dolphin just like, splashing and having fun. And I'm just here in the living room, and I'm just imagining, or flying high like the eagle. They fly higher than any other bird. They're the closest to God than any other animal or any other bird. So they get messages straight from God. So I was picturing myself, getting messages, and the unicorn to me is the magical, the horn is this white, powerful horn of magic and also prancing fun. And it's just like this combination of power and beauty and prancing fun. It's just like, there's just so many levels to the unicorn for me. And the white is purity and angelic. And, so we find these things that mean things to us. And when you look at it, I mean, did you know that looking at pictures is the vocabulary of the subconscious? So when you look at an actual picture, like if you say, I'm making a steak and you try to describe the steak, you can picture it and feel it. But if you had a picture of a steak or the actual steak, then you can really, really, get into it. So having a picture of things that remind you just takes you to a different level. And we all have different ways of putting pictures around ourselves.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to do, just print off some pictures, put them on the wall. There are different ways of having images around you that remind you.
Yeah, absolutely. I do that in my home, remind me of things that remind me of home, the Dominican Republic, things that remind me of my family. But I never thought about this power portrait. I gotta get me one of those. And so I want to go back to that moment in which she said, I know you have a waiting list and you're important. And how did you get back into, so I know that she was an authority figure and you were trusting your healthcare to her, but how did that strike you, and how did you shift to placing your attention back into yourself?
It's a knowing when it feels right. It's just a feeling. And, when you stop and say, wait a minute, what am I valuing? When I say no, I can't, what am I putting more value on? So I'm putting more value on others. And I feel that's extremely important to value others. But I know the rule that you have to take care of yourself first. And so, sometimes we women have a hard time getting that right. And I just because, I was older and, it doesn't mean that you have to be older to finally learn something, but it was a knowing by then. It was like, it took me a while to sit with it. I meditated with it, I relaxed with it. And I was like, this really, suddenly it felt very exciting. And it felt very expanding, and anything that's expansive, because I just believe our whole life is here for two things: for us to spiritually grow and to serve. So it's focus on two. If you're not doing one of those two things, your life feels a little empty. If you're not doing those two things, both of them, so for me to grow is to experience my own growth, my own self, to get more in touch with my own, because there's so many things going on in mind that it woke up different levels, different things, that I love the reminder. And so that was growth. And then now I'm able to serve even more. So, it's very, very soul filling when you're doing those two things. So
absolutely. Yeah. We need those people that are going to remind us what we already know. I love that. Yes. Yeah. And so now take us through your process, especially when you did this, for yourself. Like, how does it work? How did you know that there was an eagle coming through? How did you know? Like, I really love that yin yang representation right here. How does it all show up?
Well, through all the spiritual classes I've taken and through my life of different things, certain symbols stand out to you. I mean, most people, even if it's just stars and the moon and hearts, and those are symbols too. But some of us, do yoga and have a certain. There's symbols for everything, and so we all have. If you stop and think about it, is sometimes the symbols just come right, or a dream catcher can even be a symbol, because it represents, I love going to my dream time, or I love dreaming about my future, whatever it works for you. But symbols that, or the cross for some people, and there's so many symbols that just happen in your life. So if we stop a moment and I love the spontaneousness of our 90-minute conversation. I have a series of questions I ask them, but I don't send them ahead of time so they can think about it.
Mm.
I say afterwards, if something else comes to you, please share. But I like the spontaneous, your intuition going straight. Like the first thing, you want me to share the first thing I asked people?
Yeah.
And I think we should all do this all the time. I mean, it's not my idea. This is becoming more popular to think about. If you only had 2 weeks to live and you had perfect health and all the money you needed, what would you do for those 2 weeks?
Mm.
And, stop for a moment. And do you want to share, or is that too personal? You don't have to.
I will share. I would
Okay.
go around the world hugging people,
Oh, wow.
just giving them a very warm, long, heart-to-heart hug and being there. That's what I would do all day long
Wow.
in many countries, and especially with people that I don't understand that we don't speak the same language. That's what I would do.
That is super cool. Wow, I love that. and now I would ask, okay, if you only had 2 weeks, it would be kind of frantic to try to cover the whole world. So where would you go first?
You've been listening to the Thought Leader Podcast. At Thought Leader, we help experts, authors, executives, and entrepreneurs land the most credible and authority-building stages in the world to spread their message and their impact. If that's you, visit thought-leader.com and click on Schedule a Session to get started. Now back to this episode of the Thought Leader Podcast.
Oh my, okay. I would go to the Philippines,
There you go.
where my grandpa's ancestors were from.
Perfect. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then where do you think you might go if you had, or how long would you think out of the 2 weeks, how long do you think you'd stay there?
I think not long. I think I want to cover more room.
Okay.
There's also what's coming to me now. My friend Ida, who is my angel now, she was from Indonesia. So I would probably go to Indonesia as well. I'll go to my country in the Dominican Republic. So yeah, I would want to cover a lot of territory.
Beautiful, beautiful. And it's so nice to spend moments feeling that and being there. And then the question is, or the experience is, start doing that in your life now, because now you understand how important that is. So you could even just do it 5 minutes a day, in front of the grocery store, or, and you could start planning a trip for next year, this summer, to your favorite place and do that. Whatever, however small way or big way you can make it happen now, as soon as possible. Know that is what is filling your heart and what really means something. So it's living your life now, because, as they say, all we have is now. That's been one of my hugest lessons, because right in this moment, we worry about these problems. And then if you stop and you say, wait a minute, is the problem really affecting right now? Or am I just saying, what if this problem happens? Or why am I stressing over something that happened in the past? So living right now and filling our minds with that, hugging people, in a country or in front of the grocery store, with that feeling, instead of the present past worry stuff. It just makes the now so filling, so once we're clear what fills us, we start living our life, making that happen. And it's just it's a powerful way to live. And it's a powerful awareness to stop yourself every 6 months, stop and say, has my 2 week changed? Would I do something different for these 2 weeks now? Suddenly, test yourself every test your test yourself every 6 months, or a year or whenever, just to see if how much your life has changed, or your desires, or whatever. And
Oh, I love that fluidity that you allow for this process. So always revising and reflecting and connecting with that again. I really love that. That's really powerful. And that reminds me to ask you about imagination.
yes.
Because I really just imagined myself, and it made me so happy. It gave me so much joy. And so I know that your vision is for more and more people to enjoy love for themselves, and that the imagination is a huge piece in that. We've talked about it before, but let's tell our audience, how does imagination helps us in our everyday life?
I loved hearing that Einstein, talked about imagination being the main reason he was successful, and that Steve Jobs said the same thing. It was the source of their success was imagination. And if we kind of put those people in, I mean, whatever, if you don't trust or believe how powerful imagination is, just kind of throwing those names out might shift your thinking a little bit. Yeah. But imagination is, it's all kinds of things, like I love to sing a little happy song, I love the flowers, I love the rolling hills, and that takes us to, like, I used to sing that as a camp song with the Girl Scouts, and around the campfire, and it takes me to that really happy place, when you just sing a certain song that triggers you. There's feeling wonder, like a child, like when you're around children, you see them just be in awe, or just like looking at things. If you start imagining that I am a child seeing things for the first time, experiencing the grass and the sky and everything that's just regular around us, seeing it as a child would, if you just stop and start doing that, just even for a moment or periodically, it's just a beautiful thing. Imagining well, I don't know about imagining that you're smiling, but smiling brings joy, like imagine, because when you're down, like I'll just be walking somewhere and realize that I'm just like, all of a sudden my mind has gone off to, oh, geez, I've got this thing, that I'm thinking about. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to do that, because, you can just trust that every problem has a solution. So just let it go. Do what you can in the moment, if there's something you can do in the moment to solve something, or just get into a place of trust that that it can be solved, and then shift to some happier thing to do. And that happy thing can simply be just to lift the corners of your mouth and start smiling. And it brings joy. It brings magic. It really does, because the energy of your whole body, just imagining that now, or imagining that you're a dolphin again, or an otter, like being fun in the water, like I love imagining animals, because it's just a fun thing, and it's a powerful thing. But those are some examples.
I love that. And how did that relate to your healing?
Imagining was huge, because it's kind of funny. When I first found out, when they first did the blood report and the oncologist verified, yes, you have leukemia, and I was like, I just kind of laughed it off. I didn't take it seriously, because I realized looking back that that's a part of, I had developed trust in my life, where I'm just like, well, it's just going to go away. So I'm not worried about it. It's just going to go away. And I really did just kind of laugh it off. And then the numbers got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And the doctor was like, oh my gosh, so you're going to have to start taking chemo pills. And I was like, no, no, I don't want that in my body. I believe that I can heal. So by then you go through this thing of trying too hard to get well. So I went through that process for a while, reaching out to every source and everything possible and trying so hard. I don't want to take the chemo pills. And until suddenly it was pointed out to me that I was putting too much importance on getting healed without chemo pills. And I was like, oh, okay. So what if I have to take chemo pills? I mean, I'll get through that too. Lots of people do. Like, what is my problem? What am I trying to prove something to myself? Or, so I let it go and I relaxed. And that's when I kicked in with imagination and started having fun again. I was just like, what is the key? The key is to just let all this go. Because by then I had been, money to help, get help here and here, do this, and the numbers weren't getting better. And and then I went to Joe Dispenza meditation and learned that process of, and listened to a lot of Bruce Lipton and just relaxing. And then in that relaxation, for me, going to the animals, imagining the animals that I love and being the animals, the power of the eagle, the fun of the dolphin, those are my favorite, and the magic of the unicorn is how I simplify that. Those are my three favorites. And then the white tiger is also a very spiritual part. You can see him in there, but anyway, it's just all different ones. I just love to get lost in because the world the energy of the world is all one, like the interconnectedness. If we would just if we would realize how powerful the plants, the earth, that we're all one energy, we're all the same, so just getting into the beautiful wisdom of trees and animals to do what they do, in such a natural way. Why do we mess it up so much with all this, our power to think?
Yeah.
Like even scientists are saying, stop thinking, a few of the great scientists are saying, stop thinking and allow, the true essence of consciousness, which is being in the quiet and it's it's our intuition. It's listening. It's being present. And I got all that. And so it grew me and learning unconditional love, getting to that place, because that's a whole nother story why I got leukemia. I figured that out. And I'm not going to go into that because that's a whole nother thing, but it was being stressed. It was stress. I'll just say that I overstressed myself over a relationship that I built up to this bigger thing. And I couldn't stop it, and I'm not going to go into why. That's a whole nother talk, but those stress, it's amazing, the stress of putting myself down all my life, saying I'm not good enough, that all that builds, and you think that eats away, that putting, it just builds. Not just that one period of time where I was really going, getting into a negative space about this one particular thing that hurt bad, but all my life of just that one voice saying, you're never going to do it. You're never going to do it. So your art's gotten good, but whatever, just all these, that just eats away at you. Stress, it's just incredible. So realizing stress and shifting, just caused so much. I just said, okay, time to just get into unconditional love for myself and all others, no matter where they're at, and perceive life in a whole different way, perceive every situation in any way that I can live with it, to where I can get to a compassionate space or unconditional love. But first, compassion for certain things that you just like, you just get to a place of compassion and then just letting go, so that it doesn't create stress on you. And that was that was huge. And I bless that in my blood, so that I was forced to get to that place of clearing it out. So I feel like I've been cleared out. And I truly, sure, I slip a little here and there, but it's like little bits now, little things. And I catch myself so fast. And it's just now I really twirl.
Yay. And it was beautiful twirling. I have witnessed it myself.
Oh, it's
Oh,
fun.
can't wait to witness it in person one day.
Oh, we got to twirl together. Yes,
Yes.
we definitely do. I have plenty of wings. Come and I'll bring them wherever we are.
Yes, I love it. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I loved how you told us about how the imagination and the symbolism of the animals relate to one another and how you use that in your healing. And I want to highlight that for our audience because I think that it's such a simple thing to do. And it's such a simple and also free and easy thing to do. It doesn't really take a lot of time. Do you want to share like how long you did that for, or do you do it every opportunity, or do you have a practice?
No, it was one thing that one of many powerful things that Jim Fortin shared was to meditate, not for an hour a day or 2 hours a day. Of course, do whatever amount of time you love, 5 minutes, 2 hours, whatever is good for your life. But meditate for 24 hours a day. That is how you live. And I'm like, what? And like, no, not stopping and closing your eyes for 24 hours. I mean, I guess there's certain people in the mountains that do that once in a while, certain ones, but that's, I loved how Michael Singer said, don't do that. That's sort of a waste of, I mean, not that he's putting those people down, but it's a state of mind. It's just, it's being in a state of peace. That's what it's a simple word: trust and peace. Trust and peace. And so the minute you start stressing about something or concerned about something, you're not trusting and you're not in peace. So it's just catching yourself. So it's and the stopping meditation, the real meditation, the way you get quiet for 10 minutes or 2 hours or whatever you choose, is a wonderful time to get to something to turn to during the rest of the day. It's just like going to that peaceful place or whatever works for you. I mean, just watching your own cat or dog. I mean, they're so peaceful and happy.
Yeah.
Watch any bird, any animal, watch trees, anything. Just connect to the energy of things around you and getting whatever it takes to get you to that place of peace and trust.
Yeah, I love that so much. Oh, that's so beautiful. And especially because you embody it. And, I can definitely relate to the stress piece and the healing piece that you shared. Because when I was going myself through ovarian cancer, my mindset definitely shifted. And I could see that my energy shifted. And that definitely brings disease. Stress brings disease, and that loving thoughts for oneself and one's body brings healing. Definitely can relate to that. And now that we're saying, imagine and be in that state of peace and all of these beautiful things, when we mostly think of imagination, we mostly think of children. We think that it comes easily for a little child, maybe, but as adults, with everything that we have going on and all the stresses that we're talking about, how does it come to you easily, and how could it definitely come easy for us? I know that you have a formula that you call it a formula for an inspired life. So I would love it if you would share that with us so that we can implement it, because we want to have fun like you do.
Yeah, I guess I said I had a formula, and I'm not so sure I have a formula other than keeping it simple. If you just understand that life is fully intended to be joyful, we're here to enjoy ourselves, and that's it. like, so if we can just focus on finding our joy is what we're here for, and that's our priority, and keep it simple. We make so many more things that are unimportant important, and we make things so big in our mind, so our power of thought gets in our way way too much. So getting to that higher consciousness state of peace and of not thinking. So I would say stop thinking, periods of time, and more often, which through music, through imagining, animals, through, and you can come up with that combination of imagining animals through music. But any trick that works for you, it's coming up with the tricks, like twirling in the living room, like that can snap you out of it. If you're not physically feeling like it, do it in your mind. But like if you're just sitting on the couch and like, oh yeah, like I'm going to get up and twirl right now. Well, that sounds like fun, but yeah, right. And so you just go, you start twirling in your mind, and it's just fun. Just think of things that are light, just lighten up. And that's the main thing, I think, is just life is meant to be fun, and come up with your own formula to lighten up.
I love that. And you know what I love most? In thinking about times where physically I was definitely not able to twirl, having that power of doing it in your mind is so liberating, because I think we can all do that. And no matter where we find ourselves in body ability, I think that's a really powerful thing. What else could we do in our mind? I like that so much that I want to just explore for a little bit here.
Yeah. Well, back to imagining, imagining being a child, imagining singing, going, and that's where some of the questions, go back to what in your childhood, what made you happy, if it was your childhood and your adult, what times in your whole life were you the happiest? What were you doing? Where were you? And go there in your mind. And, if petting your cat is one of your happiest moments, then pet your cat more often, just whatever, it's just stopping long enough to remember, and then to make it a habit. It's creating new habits. It's creating new habits. That's the other big thing. I realized that I'd gotten the habit of putting myself down over everything. No matter how good I got, no matter how successful I got, I was still putting myself down. I always found a way to put myself down, because it had become a total habit. So to retrain, that's that, training of the subconscious mind, is to retrain our minds to a new habits. And that's through repetition, repeating things. And
I love that so much. And the reason why I love it is because if it's a habit and we can retrain it, then we can start today.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Living right now is right now, and then when you finally get to that knowing that I can change things in this very moment, you can't physically make yourself well. You can physically make yourself well. I mean, people have literally done that with poof, and because they believed it, they really believed it. But, anything can happen. That's just the miracle of life. But, no matter what, you can change, you can shift your vision or your feelings in the moment.
I love that so much. That's so powerful. And we're coming to the end of our interview, which is just, I don't want it to end. But I have one more question. Well, maybe one and a half. So having fun seems to be quite the theme in your thinking. And so I love that you emphasize fun in all you do. So tell me, what is one last thing that you want to leave with our audience with regard to fun and to having fun in their lives?
Ooh. Wow. Other than everything I said. I still say just lifting the corners of your mouth. Lifting the corners of your mouth is a powerful thing. I've been amazed myself, because I even had my students do a little test of, seeing how long during the day they could smile. And it isn't like putting a fake smile, because you can't, that's ridiculous. You're not even feeling it. But if you can go into a smile, go for it, because if you're feeling it. But if you lift the corners of your mouth, just like, it's amazing how they've done tests, where if the corners of your mouth are lifted up, your vision, their energy shifts, just lifting the corners of your mouth. So it's a really powerful thing. And just knowing how powerful that is, having that knowing, that deep knowing and trust that is a magical, powerful thing, not just but like I said, I was putting myself down as being flighty or simple-minded or being a child. And yet really that was all very profound, because I was having fun. And I was feeling like maybe I shouldn't be, I should be more serious. Well, now I totally get it, that having fun and being the fun that is fun for me is what it's all about, So
Yeah.
to get to the bottom of that and to be good with it and to expand on it, to be you. I mean, that's the whole thing. The power portraits, like help us discover our unique selves. So just stop a few moments and figure out what it is that brings you joy,
I love that. And so the half question now. What does fun, or how does fun relate to being a thought leader?
Wow, that's because you're sharing. And, like I said, the two things that you're here to do is to grow and to share. So we're growing. Thought leader helps us to grow, by being a better leader and speaker and think through our thoughts. So it helps us grow. And then we're sharing. So we're doing both, and we're feeling so fulfilled. So the guidance, to pull it out of us is powerful.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Joan Marie. You have been delightful. I am not surprised, but I am amazed that I get to spend time with you. And can you tell our audience where they can find you so that they can see some of your beautiful magnetic and resonant artwork and also connect with you?
Well, I'm all over the internet, my name, Joan Marie, Marie, Joan Marie, and then add the word art, Joan Marie Art. So that's my website, joanmarieart.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of it, Joan Marie Art, so that's the easy way. You can private message me on anything and I'm there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we'll also add all those links to the description of this show and the show notes. So make sure you connect with Joan Marie. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening and for watching and for tuning into another episode of the Thought Leader Podcast. I am so delighted that we spent this time together, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you so much. You're an inspiration so much. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
That's it for today's episode of the Thought Leader Podcast. Visit our Thought Leader Talks YouTube channel to browse all episodes and show notes and to continue the conversation. We love to hear your feedback, ideas, and success stories. And don't forget to subscribe for more expert information, insights, and inspiration. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Thought Leader Podcast with another relevant conversation you don't want to miss.